Scary telling.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing when the doctor told me that I had a rare form of brain cancer. My world came crashing down around me as I thought about all the things I still wanted to do, all the dreams I have for my future. I was only 28 years old, and I felt like my life was over before it had even begun. My family and I tried everything, from chemotherapy to experimental treatments, but nothing seemed to work. My prognosis was not good, and we had almost given up hope until my mother heard about Dr. Jeremiah Magnuson and his miraculous herbal supplement. At first, I was skeptical. I had heard of many so-called miracle cures that turned out to be nothing but scams. But my mother was desperate, and I was willing to try anything to save my life. We arrived at Dr. Magnuson's clinic in the middle of the woods, which was difficult to find and surrounded by a dense forest. As we stepped inside, I felt a sense of unease. The walls were lined with jars filled with strange herbs and plants, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. Dr. Magnuson welcomed us warmly and explained how his herbal supplement worked. He gave me a small vial of the liquid and instructed me to take it every day until I was cured. He assured me that the supplement had cured countless patients before and that I would be no exception. Despite feeling apprehensive about the clinic, I was willing to try anything at that point. My family and I left the clinic with the herbal supplement, feeling hopeful for the first time in a long time. As I began taking the supplement every day, I started to feel better. My headaches began to fade, and I felt like I had more energy. My family was amazed by my progress, and they started to believe that Dr. Magnuson's herbal supplement was a miracle cure. But as time passed, I started to experience strange side effects from the herbal supplement. My skin became pale, and my hair fell out in clumps. I felt weak and dizzy all the time, and my vision became blurry. My mother tried to contact Dr. Magnuson, but he was always unavailable. When we went to his clinic, we found it abandoned, with no sign of Dr. Magnuson or his employees. Despite the strange side effects, I continued taking the herbal supplement. I was desperate to save my life, and I believed that Dr. Magnuson's herbal supplement was my last hope. But little did I know that the worst was yet to come. As I continued to take Dr. Magnuson's herbal supplement, my condition improved. My headaches became less frequent, and I started to feel more like myself again. I was amazed by the progress that I was making, and I felt like I had a second chance at life. My family was also thrilled with my progress. They were so happy to see me feeling better, and they started to believe that Dr. Magnuson's herbal supplement was indeed a miracle cure. We talked about all the things we would do once I was completely cured, and I started to feel hopeful for the first time in months. But as time passed, I started to notice some strange side effects from the supplement. My skin became paler than usual, and I started to lose my hair. I was feeling weak and dizzy all the time, and my vision was becoming blurry. Despite these side effects, I continued to take the supplement. I was desperate to be cured, and I believed that the supplement was my last hope. I thought that the side effects were just part of the process and that they would disappear as I got better. My mother was worried about the side effects and tried to contact Dr. Magnuson to discuss them. But every time she called the clinic, she was told that he was unavailable. I was getting more concerned, but I still believed that Dr. Magnuson's herbal supplement would cure me. One day, I woke up feeling different. My headache was gone, and I felt stronger than I had in months. I knew that the herbal supplement was working, and I was grateful to Dr. Magnuson for saving my life. I continued to take the supplement, and my condition continued to improve. My family and I started making plans for the future, and I felt like I had a new lease on life. I was convinced that Dr. Magnuson's herbal supplement was indeed a miracle cure, and I was grateful to him for giving me a second chance. But little did I know that the worst was yet to come. The side effects of the supplement were just the beginning, and I was about to find out the true cost of my miracle cure. As the days went by, I started to notice more and more side effects from the herbal supplement. My skin became even paler, and my hair continued to fall out. I felt weak and dizzy all the time, and my vision became even more blurry. My mother was getting more and more worried, but I was still convinced that the supplement was working. I thought that the side effects were just a small price to pay for being cured of cancer. Despite my family's concerns, I continued to take the supplement every day. I was afraid of what would happen if I stopped, and I didn't want to go back to feeling the way I did before. I was determined to see this through to the end, no matter what the cost. But as time went on, the side effects only got worse. I started to feel like I was losing myself, like I was becoming a different person. My family noticed it too and became more and more worried about my well-being. My mother tried to contact Dr. Magnuson again, but he was still unavailable. She even went to his clinic to try and talk to him in person, but the place was deserted, and there was no sign of him or his employees. Despite the mounting concerns, I kept taking the supplement. I was convinced that I was on the path to a full recovery and that the side effects would disappear once I was cured. But one day, I woke up feeling worse than ever. My body was weak and my head was pounding. I knew that something was wrong, and I knew that I needed help. My mother took me to the hospital, and the doctors were shocked by my condition. They ran tests and discovered that the herbal supplement had caused severe damage to my liver and other organs. I was horrified by the news. I couldn't believe that the supplement that I had put all my hope into had caused such damage to my body. I was angry at Dr. Magnuson for not warning me about the risks and for not being there when I needed him. My family and I were devastated by the news, but we knew that we had to act fast. The doctors told us that I needed to stop taking the supplement immediately and that I would need surgery to repair the damage to my organs. I was scared, but I knew that I had to do whatever it took to save my life. I stopped taking the supplement and underwent surgery to repair the damage. It was a long and painful process, but I knew that it was the only way to recover from the damage that had been done. Despite everything, I still believed that Dr. Magnuson had cured me. I thought that the side effects were just a small price to pay for being cancer-free. But little did I know that the worst was yet to come. The side effects were just the beginning, and I was about to discover the true cost of my miracle cure. After my surgery, I was glad to be alive and felt grateful to the doctors who had saved my life. But as time passed, I started to notice strange things happening to my body. I started having terrifying hallucinations, and my body would contort in unnatural ways. I knew that something was wrong, but I didn't know what was causing it. My mother was scared, and she tried to contact Dr. Magnuson again, but he was still unavailable. One night, I woke up to find myself standing at the foot of my mother's bed. My eyes were pitch black, and my voice was not my own. I spoke in a strange language, telling my mother that Dr. Magnuson had made a deal with a demon to gain his power and cure his patients. The demon had demanded sacrifices in exchange for its power, and now I was its vessel. My mother was horrified by what she heard and tried to take me to the hospital, but I fought her every step of the way. I was scared and confused, and I didn't know what was happening to me. My mother was beside herself with worry, and she didn't know what to do. As time went on, my condition continued to worsen. The hallucinations became more vivid, and my body would contort in even more unnatural ways. My mother tried to find answers, but she was met with dead ends at every turn. Eventually, she decided to contact the police. She told them everything that had happened, and they came to take me away. I was terrified, but I knew that something had to be done. The police took me to a psychiatric hospital, where I spent the rest of my life haunted by the memory of Dr. Magnuson and his demonic cure. I never fully recovered from the damage that the herbal supplement had done to my body, and the side effects continued to plague me until the day I died. It wasn't until after I passed away that my mother learned the truth about Dr. Magnuson. She discovered that he had disappeared without a trace, leaving behind a trail of devastated patients and families. She learned that many others had suffered the same fate as me, and that Dr. Magnuson had made a deal with a demon to gain his power. My mother was left to wonder if there was anything she could have done to prevent my tragic fate. She was angry at Dr. Magnuson for taking advantage of our desperation and for using us as pawns in his demonic game. As I look back on my life, I realized that I was just one of Dr. Magnuson's victims. His so-called miracle cure was nothing more than a trap, and I fell right into it. I will always regret the day that I decided to trust him, and I will always wonder what could have been if I had made a different choice. After my death, my mother was consumed by grief and guilt. She felt like she had failed me, and she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something she could have done to save me. She spent years researching Dr. Magnuson and his so-called miracle cure. She spoke to other families who had lost loved ones to the same scam, and she joined support groups for victims of medical fraud. Through her research, my mother discovered that Dr. Magnuson was not the only one who had made a deal with a demon to gain power. She learned that there were others out there, preying on the desperate and vulnerable. My mother became an advocate for victims of medical fraud, speaking out against those who would take advantage of people in their most vulnerable moments. She started a foundation in my name to provide support and resources for those who had fallen victim to medical scams. Years later, my mother passed away, but her legacy lived on. The foundation she started continued to provide support for victims, and her story inspired others to speak out against medical fraud. As for Dr. Magnuson, he was never found. He disappeared without a trace, leaving behind a trail of devastated patients and families. Some believe that he is still out there, preying on the desperate and vulnerable. But I like to think that his demonic deal caught up with him in the end. That he was haunted by the spirits of those he had wronged, and that he suffered a fate worse than death. As for me, I am at peace. I have let go of the anger and regret that consumed me in life, and I have moved on to a better place. But I will never forget the lessons I learned, and I will always be grateful for my mother's tireless advocacy on my behalf. My story is a cautionary tale, a warning to others to be careful of those who promise miracle cures and quick fixes. It is a reminder that there are those out there who would take advantage of our desperation and vulnerability, and that we must always be vigilant in protecting ourselves and our loved ones.